£85 million. Not enough then to tempt Daniel Levy to sell him.
Not at the moment. Nat, do you think when the conversations between agents and club representatives about Harry Kane, do you think Spurs quote Munich a number? Or do you think Spurs say, look, he's our player, he's not for sale, and leave it at that? Right, because I'm intrigued to know that all this limping along and they keep adding a few quid here and there and maybe changing the add-ons and trying to come up with the right number. Do you not think, or would you not have thought that at some point Spurs would have said, listen, hit this number and he's yours?
Yeah.
Because he wants to go. We think he wants to go. But I actually don't think. I think Spurs, and I think the way they're playing this is, look, he's our property. He's not for sale.
Is that what you think?
Well,
because why would they just come out and say he's not for sale? Knowing
full well that he is for sale, really, but they're not going to put a number on it.
Yeah.
They're not putting that number on it, and they're going to keep asking Bayern to. I don't know. Just always it intrigues me when Bayern clearly wants Harry Kane to be playing for them next season. Why would they not say, right, just tell us straight, what's the number you want, and we'll tell you whether we're going to give it or not, and we're going to find it or not. And all this faffing around is probably making Harry Kane's life awkward. Every time he sees anyone walk up to him, he must be thinking, I'm swerving him and I'm walking away and I'm going in a different direction, because he don't want to answer anything about it. He's keeping his powder very clean. But everybody else is wondering if and when, and is it going to happen, is it not going to happen? So it always intrigues me. You'd think with negotiations like this, you'd think when someone wants something that you have, that they would that you would just establish the absolute number pretty quickly. But clearly they haven't.
Well, let's see what our European football expert and Bundesliga commentator Kevin Hatchard makes of it all. Morning to you, Kevin.
Morning, guys. How are we?
Morning, Kev.
Very, very well. I'm sure you're just hearing what Andy was sort of asking there. Do you think he's right? Do you think that Bayern and Spurs, there is a number maybe that hasn't quite yet been discussed yet properly between the two parties? Or are Bayern just, in the sense, thinking, well, 100 million plus is just way too much, if that is the figure that some reports have suggested is roughly what Spurs might want?
Well, the dialogue's continuing. That's what I'm being told. But I think what's interesting about this is that it's just not how Daniel Levy works. I mean, you would think, Andy's absolutely right, you would think in a transfer negotiation, if you wanted to get on with it and actually rebuild for this current season with a new manager in Ange Postecoglou, you just say to Bayern, right, this is the number you need to get to. But I think Andy Brasser was right in the clip you just played. I think there's a lot of face to be lost here, potentially, because if Bayern don't get their man after all of this effort, I think that is going to be embarrassing to a certain extent for them. But on the flip side of it as well, it's actually, the positive kudos to be gained if they can bring the captain of England to the Bundesliga is enormous. So I don't think that's something Bayern are going to give up on really easily. We still have a fair bit of time to go in the window. And Daniel Levy tends to push these things quite late. Now, I think on this occasion, that would be a mistake if he pushes it too far, because you're just not leaving Postecoglou enough time to be able to rebuild his side. I know they're making signings and have made some interesting signings already, but you don't want to leave it too late. And from Bayern's point of view, there will come a time in the window where, because they're so desperate to bring in a top number 9, there will come a point where they think, okay, well, this isn't happening. Maybe we'll need to look at trying to get Ronaldo Colomouani from Eintracht Frankfurt, or maybe we need to look at possibly trying to get Dusan Vlahovic from Juventus or somebody like that. So even though Levy normally pushes it, I'm not sure he'll be able to this time.
Yeah, Kev, with those deals, those players that they're going to potentially go after should the Harry Kane one fall through, all of those players will have a number in their contracts, won't they? They'll have a number that you hit. A bit like Erling Haaland. When Erling Haaland didn't he have a number in his contract that Man City hit, which therefore triggered the deal, a release clause, right? And so again, clearly Harry doesn't have a release clause. I wouldn't think otherwise, unless it's 150 million quid, unless it's way in advance, perhaps of where Bayern would want to get to. But that is another sort of factor really where you think if there was an obvious release clause in there, Bayern would have either walked away and started looking elsewhere, or they'd hit it.
Depends what country they're in a lot of the time. So, for example, Spain, release clauses are, pretty much every player. In terms of Germany, for example, what you tend to find, so you mentioned Erling Haaland there, what you tend to find is that top clubs outside of Bayern in the Bundesliga, so your Leipzigs, your Dortmunds, that kind of club, Leverkusen, will say to their players, look, we want to keep you for a little bit longer. So what we'll do is we'll extend your contract, but we'll agree to a certain release clause.
Right.
So they did that with Haaland. You have it's happened with Leipzig numerous times with their players that they agree an extension, but it's got a release clause in there. So Harry Kane, it seems, doesn't have that. I think if he did have one, we'd have heard about it by now.
Yeah.
And I think Bayern would have tried to hit that. But the interesting thing as well here, I think, Bayern want him. They've gone all in. Bayern absolutely want him. There is a thing in German media, and has been pretty much the whole way through. I talked about saving face. There's a lot of people in German media that are saying, well, you want to get to a certain level, but he is a player that only has a year left on his deal. And do you really want to bet the farm on him? Now, Bayern do, because I think they see him as Lewandowski Mark II. They see him as a player that could go there, score 30-odd goals a season, maybe more, for the next 5 years. So I think they very much see him as a superstar signing they want to make. So this isn't over. The clubs are still talking. I still think there's a level. I'm not sure it is Bayern's final offer. I think they'll make at least one more.
Let's quickly move on to another club that looks like they're in turmoil. And I'm talking about PSG. We know the Kylian Mbappe situation. He's told them he wants to leave, and now Neymar's joining suit and has told officials apparently that he also wants to move on from Paris. What have you got on that? And is it realistic he could come to Chelsea, do you think?
Well, they've been linked with him for years. Neymar has... The interesting thing here is that Neymar a few weeks ago did an interview where he said, my intention is to stay at PSG, even if there isn't a lot of love between me and the fans, because some of the fans protested at his house, basically said, get out, towards the back end of last season when they were really angry about various things. And so that would be a big departure from what he said there. His father's come out and said it's not true. He said that L'Equipe story is wide of the mark. And so we'll see. I think Paris have been in a situation for a while where if a good offer came in, they'd be happy to do that deal to get him off the wage bill. It's part of their change. They want to have kind of young, hungry players. They want to move away from this player power thing. I love the way they say that as if it's not them who created that. They're like, we don't want to be held to ransom. Well, if you put together a team of superstars with no real thought of how it's going to work, that's exactly how it will go. The Mbappe thing isn't moving at the moment. It may move a little bit because we're coming up to the start of the Ligue 1 season. But even though what he said, he hasn't said he wants to leave now. What he said is, I've got a 2-year contract. I'm a year into that. My intention is to go at the end of that contract. And Paris are the ones who put themselves in this position.
They have, yeah.
Because they gave him the option of the extra year. All he said is, I don't want to take up that extra option. I'll see out the last year in my deal, and then we'll shake hands and part company. But Paris don't see it that way.
talkSPORT Breakfast, waking you up Monday to Friday morning from 6 a.m. on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.